Hey guys, Sleepy Reader here. I think I'm being a bit obsessive, but I'm gonna discuss a few more comics that I read from this past week. These ones I read digitally, and then I'm gonna show you kind of a kind of lame pseudo haul I got this weekend. When I compare it to hauls by guys like I don't know, the Costa DC, this is really pitiful. But anyhow, digitally, I read the new Marvel Now Iron Man #1 on my iPad, thanks to Brandon, who sent me the code. Brandon's kind of my sugar daddy. He's been sending me some free codes to comics that I don't normally get. And I have to say, this was a good issue of Iron Man, pretty standard. I think anyone who's read Iron Man anytime will pick it up and understand it, or if you've seen the movies. So it is a good jumping on point in that way. It doesn't, I don't know, it's solid. The writing's good. It's done as kind of a diary or memoir written by Tony Stark, so we get a lot of Tony Stark's point of view, and I enjoyed that. And we get, good, solid, evil villains. Yeah, it's just a good, solid Iron Man book, probably not worth $4. Nothing to blow you away or say, wow, this has taken a major new direction. But if you like Iron Man and you just want a good Iron Man story, that's what it is. The downside is the art. The art looks great whenever you're not seeing human faces. He does a really good, Iron Man in his armor. He does great cityscapes. This is Greg Land, the artist. But when he does faces, I've never liked the way he does faces, but they seem even worse here, even more, how do I get this in focus on the picture? Even more sort of plastic and just almost hard to look at, They are kind of these photorealistic faces, but they're like taken from the most fake-looking photo you could find. It's all his women look like they're, as people always say about Greg Lang, all his women look like they're from porn magazines or something, or porno movies. But even the men, it's like they're people with plastic faces that you then took a photograph of. So that's the big downside. If you're not a huge Iron Man fan and you don't want to spend $4 on a comic book, do not rush out and get this. It could be a mildly amusing read in trades someday, or you can pass on it and you'll never really miss it or feel like you've missed anything. And then the other one that I read, which was really excellent, was Uncanny X-Force #33. Kind of a vicious, bloody-looking cover, and plenty of vicious, bloody stuff going on inside. But this has been a very stretched-out story. But as I've read most of it all in one clump, it's been a lot of fun. So I think it'll make a great trade. And this issue's chapter of it continues logically. Everything, and the pace is really good, and everything makes sense for what's been set up before. And a lot of the Phil Noto artwork is really good. I find Noto to be kind of an up and down artist, page by page or panel by panel. So some of these pages, like this one, are just, brilliant, and then others are just kind of okay or mediocre even. Like this picture here, nothing particularly special. But anyhow, a lot of bloody stuff, as I said. There's a real inventive killing of a long-time X-Men supervillain, a minor one, but one that's been around forever. Has he really been killed? No one really dies, right? Although maybe they could kill off a minor supervillain like this. Pretty spectacular, inventive way of killing him. More other bits of, ultra-violence, and coming up, a way to kill Wolverine. Oh, well, come on, we know that's not going to really happen, but it does seem kind of menacing, and it pushes the plot on to the next level, and I'm really interested to see what they'll do in the next issue. So thanks, Brandon, for those digital codes. X-Force is definitely something I can see in the long run picking up in trades. Maybe a, what do they call it? A compendium of all of Remender's run on X-Force someday in a big, giant hardback would be fun. Okay, so then this weekend, my family and I went to this store run by Multnomah County Library, which is a pretty big library system, which they call Tidal Wave Books. And they sell extra books from the library, or books that they don't need anymore. And some of them are probably pretty worn out. But you can get books really cheap there, and I wanted to go see what they had in terms of graphic novels, both for me and my daughter to read together. And it was a pretty successful trip. We got these kids ones are really beat up, but we got everything from anywhere between like $1 and $3, hardback and paperbacks. So for my daughter, we got Little Lulu, The Space Dolly, and Other Stories. My wife's a little concerned about Little Lulu because the kids in it are always being mean to each other and laughing at each other and insulting each other. But my daughter picked it up and she wanted to get it. And it's in color, and it's about kids and with a girl hero, so that's important to us. So this was there for a few dollars, $1 or $2, so I just grabbed that. Asterix in Corsica, probably more for me than my daughter because there's no female characters in these, and I love the Asterix art. So there's that, and then Gabby and the Gator is, my daughter loved this, and it's kind of a fun story about this oddball girl who makes friends with an alligator who someone else flushed down their toilet. And there's enough stuff where there's just individual words or one or two words that my daughter actually proved to me that she can read now. She just picked out, where did it go? There was this moment where I thought, wait a minute, she can read. Because she was looking at it, and she read this right here. She said, "But Mom," without having ever heard anyone read it first. So I was kind of blew my mind. Then I also got this, The Treasure of Pegleg Wilson. I removed the dust jacket because that was kind of beaten up. But it's written and drawn by Roger Langridge, who does Snarked. It's a Muppet Show comic book, and it looks pretty good. Probably something we'll just look at now, and when she's older, we'll read it together because it looks kind of dense. But I was very happy to get that. All of these things come with library stickers all over them. And on the inside, they've got a little security thing. So, it's a good deal, but you get what you pay for because they'll always be kind of marked books. Then we got The Amazing Adventures of Super Cat, which she liked a lot. Making the World Safe for Blankies, Meowie Wowie. That was good stuff, but this one's really beaten up. We paid $1.50 for it. We probably should have even paid less. And then I found a bunch for myself. Put them over there. And, the condition is poor, but part of how I rationalize this is these will be good to read in situations where I don't mind that they get a little beaten up, like when I'm traveling or, you know, at the beach or something like that. But I found a lot of interesting things. And one thing I did on all the ones that I bought for me is I already started peeling all the stickers off. But now they're kind of sticky. So now I have to find a way to get all the tape glue off of them, because the library uses very sticky tape. So one thing I found was this hardback of a Gilbert Hernandez book, Speak of the Devil. It collects 5 black and white issues, a standalone story, a pretty sexy kind of story about a peeping Tom in a neighborhood who dresses up in a devil's mask. I've read about a third of it so far. I really like it a lot. It's definitely prime Hernandez. One of the brothers who does Love and Rockets. So excellent stuff. And then you're going to hear these things are kind of sticky because of, as I said, I pulled the tape off them. Authority, Earth Inferno, and Other Stories by Mark Millar and Frank Quietly. All of these are $2 at the most. And the last one by J.M. DeMatteis and Dan Sweetman. I remember I read the first issue of this and then never stumbled across the other issues. So I'm glad to get the whole thing in a book form. It's a painted comic. This was just a shot in the dark. Fire Breather by Phil Hester and Andy Kuhn. I think these are, I know Phil Hester's the same writer. I think this might also be the same artist, although the art looks completely different. Anyway, the same writer who's currently doing Guarding the Globe, which I've enjoyed so far. So I thought it would be fun to see an older graphic novel by him. There's a dragon in here, so it's kind of cool artwork. And then I got some kind of random volumes of Savage Dragon, Volume 11. I can't see it on here. Well, a volume called Identity Crisis. And one called United We Stand, which is also, I can't see the number on it, Volume 10, I believe, of Savage Dragon. I've always found Savage Dragon a little lacking something, but I thought maybe if I read a whole bunch of these and I paid almost nothing for them, that I'll get into it. In fact, these seem like a perfect example of something I might read on the airplane, on a long airplane trip, which I have one coming up at Christmas time. Nothing too dense, but something fun to read. And then this is called Faker by Mike Carey, one of my favorite writers, and Jock, who I've only recently learned about as an artist. This may be earlier art by him, but he's a very interesting artist, so I'm psyched about that. And then finally, I stopped by, I hear people talking about quarter bins, and I feel very jealous. All I've got is dollar bins, and then every now and then comic book stores have 50% off sales, so then they become 50-cent bins. But I bought these all for $1 a piece. Reset, one of the recent Peter Bagg comic books. I heard Comic Book Crack talking about him, and that reminded me of how I used to like Peter Bagg. Thunder Agents #1, which I've heard good things about, and a Nexus comic book. I'm not sure where this falls in the timeline of Nexus, but I'm a big Nexus fan. And then a bunch of Thors, which I don't know if they'll be any good, but I thought I'd give them a try for $1. I'm still a Thor fan, even though I haven't liked the Thors I've read recently. So that was Thor it doesn't really matter what the numbers are. 611, 612, 613. These are interesting covers. 614, 615, Matt Fraction taking over. 616. And then they started renumbering him, number 6. And then I got 2 sort of random Spider-Mans, but I love this cover, so for $1 I couldn't resist. Kind of ironic because I think I'd still have to pay like $3.99 for it if I just bought the digital copy, but here I've got a $1 one with a free digital copy. And number 690, one of the Morbius runs. I'm actually kind of psyched for the new Morbius comic that's coming out. I think that'll be $2.99, so I'll be checking that out. And an issue of the Ultimates, number 13. So that was my kind of lame haul, but I had fun doing it this past weekend. Talk to you all later.